Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whisper2Scream, December 2018. My name is Bernard, and I am your host. Now, we like to begin with an update from a past story. So, here is yet another story about robots taking the jobs of humans. Before, we talked about cashiers and drivers being replaced by robots, and I feel like I'm in the middle of a sci fi novel. Because now it's security guards. Yep, security guards. Robots are being incorporated into surveillance and patrol. Now, San Francisco has been using mobile robots for a few years to keep homeless people out of certain areas of the city. And we showed you that story in a previous broadcast, so check that out. Do the research on that on our broadcast. So, robots can work long hours, they don't complain, and they don't demand overtime. Also, keep in mind that robots are being introduced into military and police forces. They go into areas suspected of harboring bombs. They locate and even detonate these devices. They will also transport bombs and ignite them in places where lives are not at risk. Now, we want to ask you if you know other jobs that may be eliminated because of robots, put them below in the comments section. And we will visit more jobs where robots will replace human beings in future programs. In our last broadcast, we talked about Chinese in Africa. They appear to be slowly gaining cooperation with the leaders of these countries, simultaneously bringing in more Chinese military. For example, when they buy a copper mine, they bring in their own army to protect those mines. Now, I never heard of such personally. Can you imagine that in America? Now, Trump may understand China's position more than we think. Now, check it. China was deemed favorite nation status under the Clinton administration. In short, China pays little or no taxes when doing business with the USA and other nations, but at the same time, that status is not reciprocal. So we pay tariffs through the nose, so to speak. That ain't right, at least not in my eyes. Let's move on into South Africa. The Chinese government has opened its 13th Chinese police precinct. The latest one is in a city called Port Elizabeth. Now, they're calling these places Chinese Community and Police Cooperation Centers. They are also dubbed as Chinese Language Learning Centers, and the Chinese police have their own uniforms. Now, the whole thing appears to be innocuous, but what country allows another country to establish its military in their country unless the foreigners are set to occupy that country militarily? Now, they declare that their mission is simply to show South Africans how to become model citizens. I don't know. There's something that don't smell right with that. Now, the Chinese tried this system in a country called Zambia. They actually formed a unit using Zambia's citizens, but then made the chief of police Chinese. But Zambia has a law that prohibits people with dual citizenship from becoming police and also prevents police from marrying foreigners because of the sensitive nature of the job. So the Chinese cooperation centers were kicked out of Zambia. Now let's go to China, where African culture is being taught from primary education through the university level. Now, the allegations are that the curriculum seems to focus on Africans are lazy and dumb, and that Chinese can save Africa by being informed and should want to move there to save the people of Africa. Now, does this scenario sound at all familiar to any of you listening to this? Okay, there's one more part we will talk about in our next broadcast. That's going to be the last part of this month of December. So, do you think they want to become trade partners with these African countries? Or do you think they want to control the natural resources of these countries? Leave some info in the comments section below. We'd appreciate it. We always have a good news story, and so, Smokey Robinson, Motown legend, has been at the forefront of a bill that was just made into law. It is called the Classics Act. In short, it extends protections for music recorded between 1957 and 1972. It allows artists to collect royalties for digital plays of their pre 1972 recordings. So artists from the 1950s and 1960s have full copyright protection till the year 2067, which means they can receive royalties and their families up until the year 2067. It was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump. Now, hooray for talented artists, many of whom are broke because they weren't knowledgeable about royalties and ways to protect their intellectual assets. People like Florence Ballard of the Supremes, Mary Wells, a big megastar in the 60s, David Ruffin of the Temptations, and many more black and whites who were young and had little knowledge of how much money they actually earned and regrettably didn't know how to invest and secure themselves financially. Sadly, it's happening today with some of the contemporary celebrities too. Our pledge is to inform, to educate, and even entertain you. That's why we ask that you please subscribe to our station and click on the bell icon right next to the subscription button so you can receive a notice when we bring you a new program. Also, please click the like button. We can also be reached at Coon Tunes the number 2 at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They all have the same handle, Coon Tunes number 2. As always, be blessed and stay woke.